Have you been dreaming about living in Japan? Or is your brand new life here about to begin very soon? When that moment comes, one of the very first questions that pops into everyone's mind is, so, realistically, how much money do I need every month? Whether you are preparing to come to Japan for the first time, or you are already living here and doing your best to build a stable life, having access to the most up-to-date and accurate information about living costs is essential for peace of mind. On top of that, even within Japan itself, rent can vary dramatically depending on the region. And simply knowing a few smart money-saving strategies can easily reduce your monthly expenses by tens of thousands of yen. Alright, now that we've set the stage, let's dive straight into the details. Let's get a clear picture of what daily life in Japan actually looks like from a financial perspective. There are 3 key points you should keep in mind to manage your living expenses effectively. First, the difference in cost structures between big cities and rural areas. In major metropolitan centers like Tokyo or Osaka, rent is undeniably high and usually takes up the largest portion of your monthly budget. However, in exchange for that higher rent, public transportation is extremely convenient. Trains and buses come every few minutes, so in most cases, you don't need to own a car at all. This alone can save you a significant amount of money each month. On the other hand, when you move out to regional areas, rent drops sharply, and fresh vegetables or local produce can often be purchased at surprisingly low prices. But in many of those areas, owning a car becomes almost essential for daily life. Gasoline, insurance, parking fees, and the mandatory vehicle inspection every few years. When you break down these car maintenance costs into monthly installments, you might find that your total cost of living ends up being almost the same as it would be in a big city. Second, let's talk about whether you prefer cooking at home or eating out most of the time. Eating out in Japan is incredibly convenient, and the quality is often very high even at casual restaurants. But if you rely on restaurants for both lunch and dinner every single day, your food budget alone can easily exceed 100,000 yen per month. Third, another uniquely Japanese factor to consider is how much expenses change depending on the season. Because Japan has 4 very distinct seasons, utility bills tend to spike in summer due to air conditioning and in winter because of heating. These seasonal swings can be surprisingly large, especially if your home is poorly insulated. In particular, in places like Hokkaido, the Tohoku region, or along the Sea of Japan coast, winters are harsh, and households often rely on kerosene heaters or electric systems, which means fuel and electricity costs can become much higher than expected. If you plan to live in these regions, it's essential to include those winter expenses in your budget from the beginning. From here, let's move on to some concrete numbers and real data. Using the latest household expenditure survey data from 2023, we'll break down the average monthly spending by household size. Here are the nationwide average monthly living costs for different household types. For a single-person household, the average is about 167,620 yen per month. For 2 people, it rises to roughly 264,238 yen. A 3-person household spends around 312,567 yen. Looking at these numbers, many of you might be thinking, wow, that's higher than I expected. But don't worry, these are just national averages. With smart budgeting and lifestyle choices, it is absolutely possible to live for less than these amounts. Now let's take a closer look at the breakdown for someone living alone. This is especially relevant for people who are coming to Japan for the first time and will be living on their own. We can divide the expenses into 6 main categories. Rent comes in at about 60,000 yen. Food costs around 40,000 yen per month, which works out to roughly 1,300 yen per day. Utilities, water, electricity, and gas average about 15,000 yen. Communication expenses, such as your smartphone and home internet, are about 10,000 yen. Entertainment and socializing account for around 25,000 yen. Miscellaneous items, including clothing and daily necessities, total roughly 30,000 yen. One category I really want you to pay attention to is utilities. Japan is famous for having clean, inexpensive tap water, but electricity and gas are not particularly cheap by global standards. Gas prices, in particular, can nearly double depending on whether the property uses city gas supplied through underground pipes or propane gas delivered to on-site tanks. So when you're searching for an apartment, always make sure to check which type of gas the building uses. Next, let's look at what costs typically look like for families. When two people live together, they can share rent and utilities, which usually reduces the cost per person. However, as families grow to 3 or 4 members, education, expenses, and insurance or medical costs begin to increase significantly. On top of that, saving for the future and paying insurance premiums become increasingly important. So careful and long-term household financial planning is essential for families. Choosing a so-called bed town, a residential suburb located a little farther from the city center, is often a smart way to keep rent under control while maintaining a good quality of life in Japan. Next, let's take a deeper look at one of the topics everyone cares about the most, the difference in living costs depending on where you choose to live. Many people say, "I want to live in Tokyo." But even within Tokyo's 23 special wards, the prices can vary dramatically depending on the neighborhood. Let me introduce the top 3 most expensive areas in terms of rent, using studio apartments as the standard and including specific figures. In first place is Chiyoda Ward, with an average rent of about 141,000 yen for a one-room apartment. Second is Minato Ward, at roughly 139,000 yen. Third is Shibuya Ward, at around 133,000 yen. This area sits right at the heart of Japan's business districts and trend-setting culture, so even a small studio commands a luxury-level price. On the other hand, let's also look at the 3 most affordable areas in Tokyo when it comes to rent. In first place is Itagoa Ward, with an average rent of about 73,000 yen. Second is Katsushika Ward, at around 74,200 yen. Third is Adaki Ward, with rents averaging about 74,900 yen. See the difference? You can live for roughly half the rent you'd pay in Minato Ward just by choosing a different part of Tokyo. If you care about getting the best value for your money, these neighborhoods are highly recommended. But if you're able to work remotely, choosing lower-cost regions such as Tohoku or Kyushu can significantly boost your quality of life while keeping your expenses down. Now, let me share 3 practical money-saving tips that you can start using right away. Number 1. Save rent fee. Rent is usually the biggest fixed expense in your monthly budget. That's why the key when apartment hunting is to relax some of your conditions instead of trying to find a perfect place. First, consider the distance from the nearest station. Simply changing your requirement from a 5-minute walk to a 15-minute walk can reduce rent by nearly 10,000 yen per month, and if you ride a bicycle, 15 minutes feels like nothing at all. Next is the building's age. Instead of insisting on a brand new building, try looking for older properties that have been nicely renovated inside. Number 2, save your meal. Aim for the time right before supermarkets close. After around 8 p.m., many stores start putting half-price stickers on bento boxes and prepared foods. You should also check out wholesale-style supermarkets. By buying ingredients in bulk and freezing them, you can dramatically reduce the cost per meal. Number 3, use point collecting. Japan is currently experiencing an unprecedented point collecting boom. For example, consolidating your spending onto 1 or 2 main credit cards. Put your utility bills and grocery spending on cards with high reward rates, such as Rakuten or PayPay-linked cards. On top of that, take advantage of point-back campaigns whenever they are available. Stocking up on necessities on days when points are multiplied is one of the golden rules for maximizing rewards. Finally, let's review the 3 most important takeaways from today. First, the rough monthly living cost benchmarks by household size. For someone living alone, around 170,000 yen is typical, while 2 people average about 260,000 yen. These are only guidelines. You can adjust them depending on what matters most to you personally. Second, choosing the right area is the biggest money-saving strategy of all. In Tokyo, targeting lower rent wards like Edogawa or Adaki can cut your monthly fixed costs by tens of thousands of yen. Third, Everyday habits make a huge difference. Make a habit of cooking at home, using supermarket discounts, and collecting points by paying with credit cards. At first, many things may feel unfamiliar. But by applying the tips we covered today one by one, you can build a smart and enjoyable life in Japan. On Moovin, you can search for apartments in Japan from anywhere in the world. We offer support in Japanese, English, Chinese, and Vietnamese. So be sure to check out our official website from the link in the description. If you thought this video was helpful or interesting, please subscribe and hit the like button. Well then, see you in the next video. I'm cheering with all my heart for your happy life in Japan. Bye bye.